You're watching a video on the drama triangle. Now, you might have heard of the drama triangle before, so this might be a bit of a refresher for you, but if you're not familiar with it, then hopefully this video is helpful. The drama triangle talks about three different roles that we can fall into. We're quite unconsciously falling into these roles at times, but they can be quite unhelpful roles for us to fall into. We can kind of stay stuck in a pattern of behaviour, a cycle of communication that isn't helpful within the family or within that relationship with the other person. So on the drama triangle, it's upside down, an upside down triangle. And the three roles that are on this triangle are the persecutor or the bully, the rescuer or the saviour, and then at the bottom is the victim. Now, as I say, you might have fallen into these roles and you're unaware of it. The purpose of this video is to help you to think about what roles you might take on and helping you to shift out of those roles into a more helpful place for yourself. Now, on this triangle, you might go from all three of these roles. So you might be the perpetrator, you might be the rescuer, and you might also be the bully. And it might be yourself and, for example, your partner. So your partner might be the victim, they might be the rescuer, they might be the bully. So you might float between all three roles. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about what these different roles are, starting with the persecutor or the bully. Now, the sort of beliefs, thoughts, ideas that come from the persecutor as this is your fault, you're not okay, but I'm okay. And it's very critical, putting others down, blaming other people and pointing the finger. What they also do is they will keep to put the victim down. So if you've got back here, so you've got the persecutor here, they will put down the victim. Okay, and there's a lot of anger there, and that drives a lot of the emotion in that, but that drives a lot of the behaviour from the persecutor is that anger. Very bossy, very dominant, quite rigid in thinking. Now you might recognise that as somebody else's pattern of behaviour. You might see that they are in that role, but actually sometimes we can fall into that role ourselves. So think about that one. Critical, blaming, putting the victim down, quite bossy, dominating. Is that something that you recognise in yourself, and do you see that in others as well? Okay, so the next bit on the top of the triangle is the rescuer. The rescuer or the coach. So with the rescuer, they're in a place where the beliefs are you need my help. You're not okay unless I help you and fix you, and that is driven towards the victim that's at the bottom of the triangle. So the rescuer feels that they need to help the victim. That's anxiety driven as well, so that they will rescue to reduce that level of anxiety. If they're not involved in trying to solve somebody else's problems for them, they feel guilty, feel like they should be doing more. They can often provide support when the other person doesn't want that support, doesn't need it. They feel connected to the victim when they are rescuing, so there's a bit of codependency there, that they get some fulfillment from that rescuing role. And it kind of gives that sense of entitlement and feeling capable, and also sort of feels like a bit of a rescue mission. Now, what can happen there is, with that sort of sense of entitlement over the victim, that puts the rescuer in a place of, you owe me, I've done this for you, so therefore I expect this back from you. The last row at the bottom of the triangle is the victim. So the victim, the belief system might be poor me, I give up, I'm not okay but everybody else is okay. And the sort of feelings that might come along with that are feelings of helplessness, being oppressed, ashamed, quite powerless, feeling incapable. There can be shame that comes from that, sort of feeling irresponsible as well. They might refuse to make decisions about the problems, they might refuse to problem solve. They might refuse to get professional help or seek advice and support. And they can feel quite angry towards the rescuer and the perpetrator when they're kind of following along with what they're saying that they should do, and they don't always feel able to stand up for themselves towards the persecutor or the rescuer. So those are the three roles. So think about those roles that I've talked through: the persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim. Do you feel like you have fallen into those roles? As I say, you can fall into these quite unconsciously. It might be something, you know, you've learned through childhood and things that you've seen from parents or friends, and that's kind of behaviour that you kind of just learn. And we kind of fall into some of these roles sometimes. It's not a case of blaming yourself if you're in these roles. It's a case of being mindful, recognising I'm in this role and I want to step out of that into a more helpful way. So you can rise above these roles by being mindful. So that's noticing what's happening rather than reacting to it. So giving yourself that time, observing your emotions, try not to judge the behaviours of others, but trying to understand what's going on in their behaviour. You know, you can only change yourself. So if you can understand the role that you play, you can work on trying to challenge yourself and make some healthier interactions. So I'm going to talk through different interactions, changes, behaviours that you can make depending on the role that you fall into. So starting with the perpetrator role, so you can go from being maybe the bully, the persecutor, maybe to the challenger. But the ways that you could do that is about to stop rationalising and justifying any dominating beliefs and behaviours that you may have. Try and catch yourself when you can see that your emotions are starting to rise. You can hear that there's an increase in your volume and the tone of your voice as well when you're trying to force get in your own way. So pressing that pause button when you can recognise that. That takes practice. So taking steps at that, just observing it first, then trying to put that pause on and having that time to rationalise things for yourself. When others are disagreeing with you, asking yourself, is this threatening towards me or is it just a difference of opinion? You know, we're all going to have differences of opinion. We don't have to agree with somebody else's opinion. We just need to accept that that is their opinion and that's okay. So asking yourself, am I being threatened here or is this just something different from my view entirely? So if you're using force a lot to get your own way, so if you're being maybe aggressive in your communication style, trying to find a way that's healthier for you but still makes you feel good, so trying to get that balance of assertive communication where you're okay and that other person's okay as well. Finding new, more healthier ways of letting out some of that anger and frustration that you might be holding up, taking that time out to release some of that emotion before things escalate. So that might be, you know, walking away from a certain situation. Another point is actually learning to feel vulnerable with uncomfortable feelings instead of letting that anger explode when you feel stressed and threatened. Again, that's something that's going to take time and practice. You need to recognise what those triggers are for you, what makes you feel angry, and then looking at those ways that you can release some of that anger and frustration in a healthy way. And then the last point is about apologising to those that you have harmed and then beginning that repairing work to set the family or that relationship onto a more healthier course. For the rescuer, the ways that you might be able to step out from the rescuing role into a more healthier role, so somebody that's more of a coach, is catch yourself in the act. So when you notice that you're doing things for somebody else because you feel like the good guy all the time and you feel sort of superior for that, but actually what you're doing that is basing your self-esteem on helping others all the time. So it's about addressing your self-esteem needs to control what others are doing and what you feel is best for them. So when you do that, actually it's about addressing your own problems, focusing that time and attention on yourself, noticing your own emotions, what your own difficulties and problems might be. Setting limits about solving other people's problems and putting all of that energy and attention back into yourself. So what's a really important thing, we've got a video on this, is about setting boundaries. So creating that limit of what is going to be acceptable for you, what to expect from that other person, so that there's that level of respect there as well. Finding out what those hooks might be as well. So others might use guilt and manipulation as a way of reeling you back into that rescuer role. If they're used to you being the rescuer, they're going to keep trying to reel you back into that. So it's about recognising what are those things that do keep me reeled in, what emotions does that trigger for me, You know, particularly parents, we find a lot of the time when it's their child or their adult child, that there's a lot of worry and anxiety if they don't rescue their loved one, they don't rescue their child. But the child knows that and will sometimes play on that emotion to get what they need. So you need to be in a place where you're strong enough to recognise what those hooks are and not to get reeled back into them. The other point as well, similar to the perpetrator role, stop justifying your behaviour. If you're enabling somebody, that's actually not going to be helping them in the long term. So stop justifying that caretaker role, stop feeling sorry for other people and giving them advice, money or support all the time. You know, it's easy to do, isn't it, when we've got that emotion that drives our behaviour, but sometimes that's not actually helping that other person, definitely not in the long term as well. If other people are overwhelming you with their problems, their emotions, you can just press that pause button and say, actually, I'm probably not the right person to help you with this at this time. You might need professional help from somebody who's qualified. I'm not qualified to be able to deal with that. But if there's something that you can do, maybe if it is sitting and listening, that can help. But if there's more professional help needed, then letting that other person know that. Another thing as well can be about becoming more assertive as well in your communication style, similar to the perpetrator. That can also be helpful to improve that communication. And finding yourself a life where you're responsible only for yourself, okay? Then lastly, we're talking about the victim role, so how you can step from being in the victim role into a more healthy place of maybe the survivor and the thriver. So stepping out from that, it's about stopping expecting someone else to rescue you, stop expecting other people to do things for you, which actually you're probably capable of doing yourself. So thinking and problem solving for yourself, acting boldly. Taking responsibility for your own thoughts, feelings and actions that contribute to you staying in that role at the moment. Being authentic with others as well, you know, actually communicating with other people or learning to communicate and practice that. Communicating your thoughts and feelings with other people, what your needs are, rather than sort of being told what your needs are and what you need to do all the time. And listen to those victim statements that might be going round in your mind. Is there thoughts that keep going round that keep putting you down? And try and challenge those, break into them thoughts, and challenge those beliefs that you might have that you're unworthy and that you can't take care of yourself. Similarly, again to what I've mentioned already, is about boundaries. So deciding what you expect from other people in terms of the way that they're going to treat you. So this could be around the persecutor. So deciding what you feel is a minimum standard of behaviour from the persecutor or from others, and that's going to be a decent way that they're going to treat you. Starting self-nurturing, maybe some self-care programs, looking at what might be available in your local area to help you build some of that confidence within yourself, getting that belief that actually you are capable of doing really incredible things. You've maybe just heard from a lot of people that you're not, perhaps you've got that going on in your own mind, to trying to break that cycle. And again, that could be about taking like an awareness assertiveness class that could help. And surrounding yourself by people who do have that belief in you. Actually, if you find that there's negative relationships, you have people that are constantly putting you down, actually that might not be helpful for you at this point in time. So surrounding yourself around people who have a positive impact, reading things that are of a positive nature. It could be reading things around assertiveness as well, and getting a life where you are responsible for yourself. So those are the ways that you might be able to step out of those roles that you might be in. As I say, this is something that does take practice and time. You need to observe the role that you're in, recognise that you're doing that first, then think of the ways that you want to challenge that and work towards a more healthy interaction and communication with other people. Now, one last point that I want to leave you with around the drama triangle is about stopping the blame game. It's so easy to blame and to point fingers. So you can go one or two ways when you've got an issue. You can either look for somebody to blame or you can start problem solving. And actually, if you start problem solving, it's going to help things in the longer term, definitely. What I would suggest doing is watching the video on boundary setting as well. I think that will be a really helpful a lot of information to get from, in addition to the drama triangle as well. Okay, hope it's been helpful for you.